Oh, yeah. It's not going to be until it's closer to the end of this. Thank you. Closer to the end of this month. And like I said, I am learning. I will be learning everything, but I'm looking forward to the opportunity. It's 8%. Yeah. Yeah. And then, like I said, those are things sort of.
Okay, hi, everybody. We'll be starting in a few minutes. Okay. We'll be starting in a few minutes. It's just too noisy stuff. And also, this is not Lisa Rivera is trying to join, but she has to manage. Colleen, you invited a huge lot of people. It's not the first item on the agenda. We saw that. And in fact, well, it is the same. So you did read, but did you go back and review the letter UNNC written? Not today. Okay, did somebody?
Are those copies of it right there?
No, these are for the first item. Oh, see some notes for the open space discussion. And since we're gonna go through that first, we're gonna share some of these. Thank you.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, can you guys hear me? There's another meeting going on in the facility, so we're trying to wait till it quiets down just a teeny bit.
Can hear you fine.
It is.
Yeah, we can hear you fine, Laura. No background noise. It sounds good.
Okay. Can we hear each other fine?
Yeah. Now that they stopped doing the meeting right behind you.
Maybe turn the
Okay.
fan off.
Yeah, because that's making a.
Right. I was gonna say something is making a lot of noise. Yeah. Oh, so much better. Then now we can hear. Okay. Okay. Steve, can I please, are you able, if I make you a co-host, monitor the waiting room because people are arriving and arriving?
Sure. Oh, man, you didn't do it fast enough. Marina got in.
Yes, she did. Yes, she did. But if you, because I'm having trouble just, getting everything going here.
Happy
All
to
right.
do it.
So, hello, everybody. My name is Laura Myers. I am the, I guess, chair rather than co-chair of the Planning and Zoning. My co-chair has not come in a while, so I'll say chair of the Planning and Zoning Committee for United Neighborhoods Neighborhood Council. And I am also currently the president of the Neighborhood Council. I'm going to share the screen. I want to have everyone's expectations handled. We have more than one agenda item, and I think we need to go in order unless there is a really good reason not to go in order. The open space element preliminary draft, which is item 3, is also on governing board, so we really can't not do it. And it's got a deadline just the same as the other 2 items on this agenda. There's really a 4th item that we will talk about. So can everybody online see the agenda? And here, if you can't see it, we have some printed copies. So item 1 is this welcome call to order. We'll review the standing rules for stakeholder voting participation, et cetera. Then general public comments on items not on the agenda. And then again, we have several items tonight. The open space element preliminary draft, which is the city's, it aligns perhaps or not with our own effort to do a remaster plan. We'll go over that just for bullet points so we can take some bullet points to the governing board tomorrow night. On your agendas that you would have received if you are signed up to UNNC's MailChimp, or if you go on to our website under the calendar, there is a link for your individual feedback on this open space plan. As your opinions, you might want to focus on something different than we could. And I hope you have opinions and do that. And so beyond that, we also have a review of our prior UNNC recommendation regarding the Hidden History Museum and its request for a conditional use permit for the sale and dispensing of beer and wine. In addition, we have our usual follow-up to previous cases, ENS, full business, and we have some updates. So officially on the agenda for SB 79 and objective design standards, but unofficially, but officially because we put it on tomorrow night's agenda. The project at 2800 West Jefferson Boulevard, which we looked at last year, the city planning department put on hold, but it's no longer on hold. It's moving forward on a streamlined basis. So it's a previous case. We're going to take a look at that, and the applicant's present, or the applicant's representative is present. And moreover, what's new under there is about to happen city council motion that CD10 has asked us to write a letter of support for. So the timing isn't very good since our agendas had already gone out, but we're gonna try and handle that as well. Okay, so the rules of engagement for a neighborhood council, or for our UNNC standing, standing committees. Anyone who is a stakeholder is allowed to participate in the discussion, make a motion, they may vote. A stakeholder is someone who lives, works, owns property, worships at a church within our boundaries, attends school, or has a child who attends school, and or in other ways participates in a 501c3 charitable organization which has brick and mortar footprint here, building here within the UNNC boundaries. So I'm gonna stop the share on the agenda, and we're gonna go through our introductions. We'll speak here in the room. There's a lot of people, so let's just say who you are. I'm going to demonstrate who you are, where you live, and whether or not you're a stakeholder. So I'm Laura Myers. I live in Angeles Vista. That's within UNNC. I am a stakeholder.
Adrian Hernandez. I live on Jefferson Park, and I'm a stakeholder.
Terry Kim, I'm here with ADA, the Asian American Drug Abuse Program, and we are a provider that is a state.
Ron Powers. I'm a stakeholder, and I live over on 30th Street.
Janice Sambalo, I'm a stakeholder. I live on 31st Street. I'm Colleen Davis. I live in Jefferson Park. I'm a stakeholder.
Chris Carlson, I live on Western Heights. I'm a stakeholder.
Okay, and I'm going to start by just calling names. David Saffer.
David Saffer, I live in Jefferson Park. I'm a stakeholder.
Steve Peckman.
Steve Peckman, I live in Jefferson Park. I'm a stakeholder.
LB.
LB Nye, I live in Jefferson Park and I'm a stakeholder.
Teresa.
Hi, Teresa Masonette. I live in the West Adams Avenues. I'm a stakeholder.
Tariq. but you're muted. Wait, you're muted.
All right. I'm Tariq Nasheed. I'm the owner of the Hidden History Museum, and I'm a stakeholder in Jefferson Park.
Javon. Okay, you're muted, and everyone at the moment can unmute, please. So Siobhan.
Sorry about that. Siobhan O'Neill Schwenk, Region 4 representative. I'm a stakeholder, and I'm in Western Heights.
Okay, Keo.
Hi, I'm
Did I
Kiao
do that
Tano,
right?
and I live on 31st Street in Jefferson Park, and I'm a stakeholder.
And I'm Dane Rosselli. I live on 31st Street. I live in Jefferson Park, and I'm a stakeholder.
Shane.
Shane Allen, 30th Street, Jefferson Park, stakeholder.
Marina.
Marina Maves, 30th Street, Jefferson Park, stakeholder.
Desa?
Yeah, hi, I'm Dessa. I'm on 30th Street in Jefferson Park, and I'm a stakeholder.
Donna.
Donna Jones, live in West Adams Avenues. I am a stakeholder.
Gary.
Hello, I'm the representative for one of the projects presenting tonight.
Thank you. Kristen.
Hi, Kristen Riddick. I am a stakeholder in Jefferson Park.
Priya.
Hi, Priya Autry, stakeholder on 31st Street.
Georgiana. I know. Well, Georgiana, you're muted. And Elisa, you're muted. If either one of you want to unmute and introduce yourself, it'd be great. If you're able. Yeah. There you go.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm sorry. I'm on a call with a senior lead. This is Elisa Rivera. I'm the field deputy from CD10. Don't generally come to these meetings, but want to make sure I come out every now and then.
Thank you. Georgiana.
Hey, Georgiana Streeter from 29th Place. I'm also a stakeholder.
Thank you. So again, we have multiple items on tonight's agenda. So the general public comments section is usually maxed out at 10 minutes. It's for comments about anything not on tonight's agenda. And I'm pretty sure we'll all appreciate it if it maxes out at 5 minutes. Or Colleen.
I'll keep 2.
Okay.
Really quick, everything old is new again. I worked with a group of folks in 2003, mostly folks that live up here in the avenues, to propose a gateway monument at the cul-de-sac at 23rd Street and Arlington, just south of the freeway, where cul-de-sacs, where now it's barriers and concrete and maybe some weeds. And I just wanted to kind of give everybody who attends meetings a heads up that I'm starting to talk to folks again about maybe reviving this proposal. Donna has said that I can come to the Avenues meeting on the 11th. I'm going to talk to some folks in Key Heights. Anybody who has a meeting that they think would like to hear about this proposal, I'll just quickly show you guys some quick drawings.
Okay. So it's basically, if it were to happen, it'd be something pretty with some sort of monument in it, and 2 of them, right? One on either side.
That's the goal, yeah. There's the cul-de-sac on either side. Think back in the day, we definitely were looking at landscaping, but now it's 25 years later, and I think we understand that we probably want them to be natives. Maybe it could be bioswale, that all those details to be worked out. But these are just the old drawings, concepts. Not saying that it needs to look exactly like this, but something.
And I'm sorry, folks, I don't have a copy of this to put up on the screen.
Maybe as things move forward, we'll be maybe asking for action at some point. But right now I'm just talking to neighbors and kind of letting folks know that this old proposal is getting maybe a facelift. So that's it.
Okay. Any other general public comments? Did anyone want to say it was a great event in Jefferson?
I want to say that was
because I missed it, so I can't say it.
So the event that was on the 21st at Shaw Park in Jefferson Park, celebration of the 10-year anniversary of the park getting its incredible facelift. So enjoyed by the whole community. Tons of people, tons of booths, great energy, lots of cool stuff, including the neighborhood council had 2 tables, I think a general table, and then a table that was more focused on the Parks and Rec and greening efforts that the neighborhood council is. So there were tons of people putting ideas on a map for where they'd like to see greening. It was a great event, tons of people.
Yeah. Terry Kim with ADAP, we had a table and just so grateful for the opportunity. I know for us, we're neighbors, but re-engaging and being able to connect with folks again. It was like such a beautiful day, so joyful. So just, yeah, really want to acknowledge the neighborhood council. It was really great family event. We have a youth program, and so it was awesome to also connect and share more about our resources. We have a Work Source Center. It's the West Adams Work Source Center. We have outpatient substance use services. So it's great to be able to reconnect with everyone. Thank you.
David.
Yeah, also the same day, we really got to show off our neighborhood because the Office of Historic Resources and the LA Conservancy were sponsoring the, and I get this wrong every time, Historic Neighborhoods Conference in our neighborhood at Greater Page. At Greater Page Temple, following which a couple of our historic neighborhoods, 2 of the HPOZs and Sugar Hill, got to show off their neighborhoods to conference attendees by presenting tours. And so I think we presented ourselves very well. I know Jefferson Park had a tour. Was it the Kinney Heights or which area did they
maybe
tour?
Western Heights may
Western
have.
Heights.
Yeah.
Western Heights and then Sugar Hill were the 3 tours that they offered. So anyway, so it was a good day.
Thank you. Yeah, in fact, I led the Sugar Hill tour, which is why I wasn't able to be at the other event, because I was at this conference and then led the Sugar Hill tour. So it was the Sugar Hill south of the freeway tour. So, and by the way, it seems like I'll be doing it maybe more than once again. So if anyone's interested, just let me know. Yeah, because every time we do it, someone else says, can you do it again?
You get that a lot.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Well, that's what happens when you're a historian and you just keep digging in. Okay, anything else? All right. So the third item on the agenda is the open space element preliminary draft. And so the city planning department is doing an update to its open space element. And it is designed to address, the current new one is designed to address environmental justice, climate resilience, and rewilding opportunities in alignment with the city priorities and as well as Senate Bill 1425. Just so everyone is aware, the last time the city did its open space element was 1973. So what they're doing now is updating conceptually as well. I handed out, I have some bullet points here and I'm going to share on the screen. The whole document is in our agenda packet and it's worth reading. We'll be taking it as well to governing board tomorrow night. I can't imagine we're going to do anything more tomorrow night other than accept any recommendations we might have today for bullet points and then authorize some group of us who really want to read this line by line to draft a letter for approval by executive committee and get it in on time by March 31st. So that's my best guess because we have a lot of business tonight. We certainly have a lot of business tomorrow night as well. So what I did was I pulled out the goals and not any of the how to meet the goals, just the 6 goals that they had. So it has this, do you guys have? Okay. So when I looked at this, I realized we have a big disconnect and we'll go through these goals, but the big disconnect is they're working on an open space element at the same time they have just passed, both at the state level, but here at the city, so many housing ordinances and pieces of legislation that give so many waivers to developers of housing that almost all the goals that they're stating are going to be very difficult to implement because they're in conflict with the housing goals. But that said, goal number 1 is open space that is composed of equitably distributed and connected land and water. They make the point here in LA that that land is scarce. And even though there's some neighborhoods adjacent to vast wilderness or coastal areas, but by and large, neighborhoods like ours that are densely populated, there's few parks or open space to serve the needs of the community. So this intersects exactly what we're doing right now with our green master plan, which won't be finished anytime soon, but I think we should say in our response, our first round of comments on this, that our neighborhood council is embarking on this effort, and it might be that they should work through the other 98 neighborhood councils to see if each one could embark on some sort of effort so that this policy and goals and objectives that they have might align with actual, ground up. I mean, we've determined that we need to go out to communities and talk to people. What do they think is green? Where do they want to have green spaces? And maybe that's, a comment we should be making as well. So that's any, you guys think? I don't want to be the only voice. You think?
Sounds like a good idea. I certainly wouldn't want them to be hamstrung though in updating the open space element if other neighborhood councils are not as proactive.
Well, that's true, but as a suggestion,
absolutely.
As a suggestion, because it says, although public parks, both those managed by the city and other agencies, are the most familiar open spaces, they're not the only part of the overall picture. I mean, it's saying what we're saying.
Yeah.
So I like this one. And then they say, again, I like this, once lost to development, open space is rarely recovered. And I think that statement is, the crux of the whole matter when we're talking about the conflict between housing and open space. Okay. Goal 2 is open space with coordinated and inclusive planning, management, and stewardship. So planning for managing public open space in Los Angeles, requires, I just lost it, requires persistent coordination and collaboration among various city departments. I don't know, Colleen, do you want to jump in? Well, I'm just going to say a few of us just had a meeting with
Project Brian's office.
Yeah, folks who work for a state legislature, like legislator. And that's actually one of the things we addressed, that in our doing just the beginnings of this project, the one that you guys saw who went to the Jefferson Park Leslie Shaw event, just the beginnings of doing this mapping and outreach, we are learning that there's so many different agencies and they all seem to point the finger to other ones as being the actual responsible party for implementing things. And so having persistent coordination and collaboration is an obvious thing. But again, I think our own comments might be, we also discovered this. We're learning this on the ground, and maybe give an example.
Sounds good.
Sounds good. Okay. In order for historically underserved communities with the highest park needs to have a more equitable experience, or to more equitably experience the benefit of open space, they need to take part in all of this. Well, yay. I don't think we have, but I will say we've taken a statistical look, and UNNC is 4% I mean, it's very low, just very low in terms of its park coverage. That's not 4% of geography, it's 4% of its people are well served by parks. So that's a bad statistic. Okay. Oh, goal number 3 is open space that provides equitable access to safe, high quality environments, facilities, and programs that serve diverse needs. So equitable open space must address more than physical distribution to serve the diverse needs of people of Los Angeles. Not, I think that's an understatement. Not all open spaces can provide facilities or services for every type of purpose or user or activity at once, nor is that always desired. Thoughts?
I do have a thought on that, kind of related, and I think that is that certainly in our neighborhood council, we're going to have to be very creative about where we find open space. I think we do have a lot of underutilized public space, be that access right of way along the freeway, be that access right of way along Metro, be that alleys that are problematic now, but could be a form of open space. Maybe schools can be shared, more shared use among the community and the school. So I think that's like a.
So what we want to do is look at, I mean, again, I just excerpted the goals.
Yeah, I'm in the neighborhood meeting at the moment, but they're discussing.
I excerpted the goals. I didn't, because there's a lot of pages that have their strategies and objectives, but we should carefully read them. And if they don't say what you just said, we should say they should be added.
Just being very broad-minded and creative about how we define open space and how we make amenities out of things that are just forgotten now.
Right, forgotten spaces.
Right.
Steve.
I think Colleen's made some important points, but I want to understand how this element interfaces with the state mandate and the city mandate to increase housing, and how the city and state are essentially appropriating open spaces that are owned by the government for increased housing. And you might, some of the people here on this call might remember that the UNNC letter to our Assemblyman Brian about SB 79 specifically called out these types of issues and the underserving of our community in terms of open space. So is there something in this element that actually addresses the balance between increased housing and the need for open space and a process for ensuring adequate open space?
No, but I think, as I sort of introduced this, I think that is certainly needs to be something we write.
Great.
That there needs, it's disconnected. And
right.
Yeah.
Competing goals.
Well, it's competing.
As we increase density in an already dense community, there has to be something that addresses the public health of that increased density, and increasing open space and parks does make steps in that direction.
Yeah, I mean, I was at a public hearing. Well, I wasn't at the most recent one. I was at a public hearing a month and a half ago, and then the planning commission hearing on the same project was this last week. A project on the corner of Pico and Crenshaw, and we had looked at it kind of quickly here, but it's in the different neighborhood council. So UNNC wrote a very brief letter saying what our general opinions are, but that we're not in that neighborhood council. But one of the things in the applicant's request for waivers, the applicant requested not just a waiver of open space, but a waiver of the requirement that they plant 18 trees because, quote, it'd be expensive to plant them and expensive to maintain them. And, it's like, well, we need those trees. I mean, expensive to plant and maintain doesn't seem to be a legitimate reason for a waiver, but the commission, as far as I understand, granted all the waivers, including that one. So that's, I feel like this open space element should have some objective thou shalt and thou shalt nots in it. And I didn't see that so far either, but I think thou shalt not relieve at any time the duty to plant trees. If you don't plant them on your site, plant them somewhere else.
Right, but
You know,
somewhere else within the general vicinity. If I could just give some numbers to put this in context. Our community is park poor. And we're at the bottom quartile as designated very high priority on the Trust for Public Lands Park Serve tool. Okay, and we have, by city planning's own documents, our community plan area has a more than 1,700 acre park open space deficit. So in order for this concept to actually serve the communities that need it the most, these densely populated communities that we live in, we have to somehow make this interface between the state laws and what the city wants to do regarding open space. One more point I want to make is that open space should be considered necessary infrastructure, the same thing as sewers and other things that constitute infrastructure.
good point. Yeah. And we're jotting it. We're all suddenly jotting that down. Steve, thank you. Nice phrase. I will catch it again on the AI, but jotting that down. Okay. Then number 4 is goal 4, open space that strengthens. Well, that word "that" doesn't make sense compared to all the other goals, but anyway, it's open space that strengthens climate resilience and provides environmental and public health benefits. So this is about adaptive, climate adaptive things. And vegetation and open spaces help cool cities during periods of extreme heat. So this is about the canopy. So again, we know that our tree canopy in UNNC is essentially much lower than certain other parts of town. And I think, again, we're going to want to say that this preamble, this goal setting, ought to be referencing some important statistics about that, because the city as a whole, maybe, I don't know why the statistics aren't somewhere. Maybe they would be in the executive summary and I missed it, but they do need to address it. So goal number 5 is open space that supports healthy ecosystems and healthy people. Seems to be similar to number 4, but in addition to the climate change, it's addressing biodiversity loss, ecological degradation, so that we need to do an ecological restoration. I feel that the main problem with this, again, the way they are stating that, is it's hard to understand how that applies in dense urban areas. I mean, it feels like what they're talking about here, I mean, they're not making it clear, because I know we don't have enough biodiversity, but it feels like they're discussing, well, they say restore habitats, et cetera. So I think what we want to say is this element should be for urban areas and not just, wildlife areas. I know they're part of the goal is rewilding, and I know some of us are kind of upset about the rewilding here with the coyotes, but anyway, Steve, is your hand still up or up again?
No, I want to respond to what you're saying, Laura. I think you're
Okay.
absolutely right. And I would hope that this plan would include a process for prioritization of high density neighborhoods who lack open space, right? So that neighborhoods that already have open space don't somehow get shot to the top of the list for these kinds of things to be addressed. And I think if it doesn't include a prioritization plan, that would be something I hope our neighborhood council would put in its letter.
Chris?
On this particular issue of connectivity and habitats and stuff, I think it's important that we also recognize that even though we don't have high numbers of public open space, that for this kind of thing to be successful, you really got to partner with both public and private. And in yards and gardens, it's already been, just even checkerboard placement of natives is enough to start connecting for insects and birds. And so part of this should be a lot of outreach as well to private residential landowners to try to move these goals in parallel with the more public footprint as well. And I think because we're going to have to maximize whatever green we got, and a lot of our, like 70% of the city's trees are on private land and in lawns and gardens. So we have to make sure we understand how to leverage that to make these larger city goals work.
Right. Well, and in addition, and I guess this is cross-department, but I believe it is still kind of in the laws that you can't really fill your parkway from one driveway to the next with too many plantings, because people need to be able to get out of their car and walk across. And I don't know which is more important, passengers getting out of cars or having lush parkways.
It's a good conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I love it. I love that point because I think the point of semi-public or properties that are held by, say, nonprofits, properties that are held by maybe unconventional public entities. Laura and I were at the William Andrews Clark Library yesterday. That is owned by UCLA. UCLA is a public entity. And so just making sure that all of our open space is considered and also available.
Right.
And that people know that it's available for them.
Right. Well, also, Chris in particular, but I and others have had ongoing conversations with the, I forget their name, the oil drilling company. On the rear landscaped park-like setting, which UNNC, but UNNC years ago got it recreated. I mean, in other words, there was like no park-like setting. So, but it's only a park-like setting. But the conversation is, how can it be more of a park setting, not just a park-like? You know, is there any ability to open it at least some of the time? And so the oil company has been in conversation now, what, 3 or 4 years with the archdiocese to get the permission.
Indicated they'd be willing to cooperate if it was the right sort of balance, because it wouldn't be open on a regular basis, but it could be open for special occasion events for, like, or possibly through organized school groups to come and look at, bird watch or to learn plant identification, and partner with other nonprofits type thing. But the problem is you need supervision, and then if you have supervision, you need staff, and if you have staff, you have salaries, and then you need money. And none of that exists.
But in any case, we're kind of thinking about spaces, broadly speaking, that are not parks, but might somehow be in better use.
Yep.
Okay.
I'll make one other.
Sure.
Yes. I mean, we already have cyclavies in the city, but those kinds of events literally take over our streets and bring all kinds of people out into the fresh air. They're walking, they're biking, and they see their city in a different sort of time frame than when you're going in a car and watching, the bumper in front of you. And so those kinds of things could be more prevalent and could be both on the calendar and could move around and be different lengths or different characters. But again, our public streets could be part of our open space if there was the ability to sequentially for short periods of time close them and use them for the public other than driving.
Right. And I imagine that I think in the 80 or so pages, whatever it is, there must be conversation in a more detailed way about like little parklets on the street. I mean, I just haven't personally had a chance to delve really deep into this yet. So I was just going through what I thought we could handle here. Yeah. Okay, so goal number 6. Apparently, they're bringing in the prior conservation element that was about historic resources and cultural practices. I am not sure how comfortable I am with that because I don't know. I mean, but this is the way it's be. I just, suddenly we changed topics. We had goals number 1 through 5 was about green and wildlife and biodiversity, and now we are at historic resources and cultural practices, and scenic value. So I don't think we object to this, but I'm curious as to what happens to the city's conservation element, which that phrase conservation was equated with preservation. So so here they're saying as a goal, well, preservation can involve celebrating a history that we're proud of. It also involves recognizing moments in our history that can be painful and uncomfortable. They're focusing a little on first people. And then they say, and I can't get to it because of the way I've moved. I mean, you guys can probably, everything just disappeared. I hope I can get it back. Basically what they're saying in this is also that we should be paying a little more attention to identification and protection of other pieces of our history. And I'm just going to be a little, I don't know exactly what the right word would be. We have found that they're saying good things, but they're talking the talk about increasing the number of designated resources associated with African Americans and Asian Americans and Latinos and gay and lesbian and women and Jews, but it's really difficult to get those kinds of resources actually designated because the staff is still focused on a day-to-day basis on pretty architecture. And even some of this language is like, there's pretty architecture and it has good scenic value. And then there's all this other stuff that I want to make sure that on a practical basis, that they're putting in this element, how to overcome maybe the standard practices in historic preservations that prevent actually implementing. You're giving us a frown, Colleen, but that's exactly, one of the things that was discussed at the neighborhood conference, even by OHR, that the standard practices of preservation are a barrier to instead of supportive of designating these kinds of resources. Steve, you have your hand up and I'm gonna try and get our picture back. We've lost the room.
We can see the narrative.
I'm sure you can, but we can't see you anymore because I did something bad.
Okay, so I'll just make a point about preservation, which is considering the erasure that's going on in national parks of our nation's history. It seems to me that this is a very important element to be included because it could be as simple as putting up placards that provide historical context in these spaces. And I would see that as a very positive thing, especially to combat what's happening at the federal level. If this could be embedded into some kind of Los Angeles City rules, I see that as a real positive. And I don't see why it has to be a detriment to historic preservation of architecture.
No, that's not what I was saying. What I'm saying is those of us who are in at least some of the time as a volunteer, the business of writing nominations to make things historic cultural monuments, what we've been finding of late in the last couple of years is that they're at staff level, not at the commission, not at city council, at the staff level. They're the gatekeepers. We're not getting these nominations moving forward to the commission because they're saying, well, is there enough integrity? Is there this? Is there that? Did an event take place in this building? I mean, they're kind of sticking to tradition and not the idea of let places tell their stories.
I think our neighborhood council can make a strong statement about the importance of documenting the history of these places and ensuring that there is appropriate placards or notices or historical elements that are outlined in some kind of way that the public accessing these spaces has an understanding of the history. It could be quite educational and very important for people to gain a deeper appreciation of preservation in a broad sense, not just an architecture.
Well, I'm glad you said that. And I think Elise is probably going to take some notes because that's the other, other business on our agenda later tonight is about one such building. So we'll get to that later. But
yeah, I'm saying we need to think broader than buildings than just the idea of open space.
Steve, and I understand that.
Okay.
And that's also what the newly instituted Black Cultural Arts District is also getting, kind of focusing on. And I want to make sure all of these efforts align with this element that'll be for the next 30 years. That's what I'm trying to say. It's like, let's make sure we have, we're walking the walk and not just talking the talk. Chris?
I think it's important to think also beyond the traditional kind of placards because nowadays everyone's carrying with them effectively a computer in their hand where if you have QR codes on post, you can come in now quickly look into different kind of layers. But Dim and I were hiking the West Highland Way and there were places where you could have audio histories delivered to your phone while you walk through certain historical or nature areas and stuff. And that certainly gives a lot more bang for your buck.
Yeah, it's doable. There's an artist in Venice who is on her own, just doing it. She's going through Oakwood and other places, mostly Oakwood, and just actually doing that.
Great.
On her own. So one could now follow her path. Okay, but I think there's just commentary we can do on all of this. Is there any other, as I'm looking at the time, because we got to get to the other stuff. Is there any
That's
other
a great
thing?
idea. Hey, Laura, it's Hakeem. I just want to chime in on that digital project.
Hakeem.
Hey, everybody. On that digital project, I recently went out to Allensworth, California.
Oh,
And they actually have a monument system very much like that. We can QR code and like hear the history and read up. That's something that I would be interested in helping you guys do.
Right. Yeah. And I think that might be something we could get through the LA Commons and our state senator Lola Smallwood Cuevas is this big cultural thing, except for it doesn't include all of UNNC. So, it's an arbitrary boundary at Adams. It doesn't even go to the 10 freeway, but that's okay. We can figure it out.
You
But
build the quilt as you go.
right. So I would want to make sure that this goal number 6 aligns with these other big ideas and that it ends up helping create an atmosphere where the city's not just talking a talk, but walking a walk. Because that's kind of the problem. They've been talking for 5-6 years about wanting to work hard to increase the number of designated historic resources associated with previously ignored peoples. But it's been proven very, very difficult and not easy. So that's okay. Anything else on this item? We'll move on. Does feel like there's a little bit of a theme going on tonight. So our next item is a review of prior UNNC recommendation.
Donna has her hand up.
I'm sorry, I don't see a hand. Who has her hand up? Donna.
Can you stop
Okay,
the share,
Donna.
please?
I wanted to remind you, Laura, that the Green Book presentation you did would the opportunities for pointing out culturally important areas within the area, that would go along with it. And I thought it was great.
Yeah, so Colleen has twisted my arm and thank you, and asked the librarian at the Jefferson branch if I can, can I do that presentation again? But we're talking about a presentation I did for the Negro Motorist Green Book and in particular focused on Green Book places that were here in our community.
It's
So-
great. We'll let you guys all know when Laura's gonna be starring at the library.
It was wonderful and more people should see it, so.
Yeah, all right, thank you. And then, yes, Chris, still trying to move on.
Another way to carry messages, I was just thinking back, if you walk through Berlin, throughout the city, you'll see these small markers in the cobblestones that designate who lived there, you know, who died in the Holocaust, what, and it's like, and
It's horrifying, but yes.
it's very impactful.
Yeah.
And it puts you right there with other people at other times and their experiences. So
Plaques
there's
are actually located throughout Europe. They're not just in Berlin. They're all throughout
Yeah.
Europe.
But that was an example I had time to really study.
Right, and okay, and then we're still on this, the very famous cemetery in Paris, which somebody might remember its name, but it's famous, it has all the famous Parisians who are buried there. Pardon?
Pierre Lachaise.
That one. That a gal who lives here fell in love with the cemetery there, and she's created an entire, app, website, and an app. So you can if you have the app on your phone and you're in that cemetery, it's like the QR code, it's only it's on the app.
Well, certainly Waha has the database to do that for Rosedale.
Oh my God, but not the app. Anyway, so can we move on? Because moving on to the Hidden History Museum has, this has been an ongoing thing. So the Hidden History Museum has done an application for a conditional use permit for the sale and dispensing of beer and wine for on-site consumption at a bar that's, within their space with live entertainment, no dancing, and I'm reading out loud, containing 16 indoor seats. Community members have reported that there have already been events, including the serving of alcohol before the CUB is approved. The deadline for further comment to the zoning administrator is April 1st. So UNNC did write a rather lengthy comment letter. We had initially approved the application. Then the neighbors started complaining. So, but at the time of the actual hearing, we wrote a letter that basically said UNNC support is contingent on the zoning administrator that they grant that the actual operation matched the project as presented by the applicant. So in other words, what was presented to us was a much more minimal use than parties at night with music that could be heard by the neighbors, et cetera, et cetera. So
one question for clarity, are they proposing that these are only their own events that they host?
Yeah,
or
yes.
that they're actually leasing to outside groups to use their venue for other events?
Well, can I finish? So technically UNNC has already in effect spoken. But the comment period continues. And it's on tonight's agenda. It's also on tomorrow night's agenda. But for those of you who are bureaucrats at heart, which would be just me, perhaps, technically, if we were going to reconsider our initial approval, technically it was supposed to happen within the very next meeting. So that'd be 1 month later. So that's long gone and past. And technically, a person who had voted in favor would have had to do a motion for reconsideration. So, and in fact, if you look at our standard agendas, I have the full agenda with me, but it kind of makes that clear. However, this has been significant enough of community complaints that we wanted to bring it back. Colleen asked to bring it back. What we had said in our letter, what was two things. One, what was presented to the board originally. There's a project proposed at the Hidden History Museum with an address. It was described as an existing art gallery and museum space, asking for a conditional use permit for the sale and dispensing of beer and wine for on-site consumption at the interior bar with 16 seats, limited evening use. We were shown an interior renovation as shown in a site plan, and the concept was to help promote the museum, not to create an event space for a nightclub. But, and then the letter goes on to, you know, quote our transcripts. So we have transcripts of these meetings. And then we voted to support. How did that get answered? The ghost answered to my phone. Anyway, unfortunately, we wrote, there now appear to be several concerns. First, the hearing notice indicated a much more intensive use with hours that exceed what was presented. Second, the immediate residential neighbors across the rear alley have reported numerous events have already taken place with the exterior and interior uses, amplified music, despite there not yet being an approval in place. I am very sorry, the phone is talking about me. Third, it appears as if the Hidden History Museum is already serving or dispensing alcohol at some events. Fourth, the Hidden History Museum and Art Gallery does not appear to be open very often to the general public, and it does not appear to be functioning as a museum or an art gallery as we have a common understanding of the term. So it has reported hours and they seem to vary depending on if you Facebook website. But it's not routine. It doesn't appear to be routinely open. And then fifth, that community members also recently told UNNC that they're concerned about the lack of parking and the fact that the application does not address event parking, valet parking, or similar. UNNC had not addressed that issue. So it appears that more transparency is needed for the project. And then we asked the zoning administrator to consider granting only limited hours for alcohol rather than allowing events in the sale of beer and wine all day and evening long, 7 days a week. So specifically, we were asking that the alcohol service sales be restricted to 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. only, like was presented to us. Similarly, if the actual request is for indoor only entertainment, then outdoor or amplified music should not be allowed. No DJs, no live bands, no music. Any zoning approval should not be construed as creating or permitting an event space, banquet hall, nightclub, etc. So that's what we wrote. Unfortunately, the zoning administrator seemingly indicated during the hearing that if the grant would be to be only say 6 to 11 for this, then the museum gallery couldn't even be open during the day, which is not exactly right. It doesn't make sense, but that's what the ZA said. So it's like scratching my head. So I am not sure what different letter UNNC would write. So that's, I said to Colleen earlier today, well, what's the ask? And we have our applicant here. So I don't know if we, for fairness, ask him to talk first or Colleen to talk first. Pleasure of Teresa has her hand up.
Can you please stop the share, Laura?
Oh, is the share still on? Oh, we can't see the share on our end anymore. Sorry. Stopping the share. What was I sharing? I would have been happy to stop that share a long time ago if only I knew we were still sharing. Because we're not seeing the share. Okay. Is that all you wanted or you want to talk?
No, I'm going to wait. I think you were going to let the.
I think we should let Tariq speak.
It's not. Can you guys hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. I don't know what some of the pushback is about the museum. The museum is a regular museum. It's a museum. It's a staple in the community. Many people appreciate the community. We don't have loud noise whatsoever. I don't know where that narrative is coming from. The public events at the museum are not frequent. They only take place every few months, and they're very controlled, very quiet, very cultural. We don't have a lot of, ma'am, somebody shaking their head, ma'am, am I saying something incorrect, ma'am?
Are you talking to me?
No, there was somebody
I'm
who was
just-
shaking, okay, there was somebody shaking her head, and
No, I think he's referring to me, but Tariq, I'm sure that's why there's so many community members here. And once you speak, then I'm sure they will speak too.
okay, because yeah, you were shaking your head as if I was saying something that was incorrect. Again, the museum, we're very thoughtful of the community. We're not going to have a lot of loud noise out there. We only have a few events every blue moon. The the museum is open 4 days a week. It's been open 4 days a week for the last 3 years. So people can come in, which they do from 11 to 4, Monday, Tuesday, Friday, and Saturday. They come in, it's a museum. They look around, they enjoy the art and the things that's in there. They buy some of our products, and that's the basic operation of the museum. The focus is cultural preservation and education, and our programming reflects that mission. With this nightlife stuff, I don't know where that's coming from. We're not doing any nightclub, and we have events every blue moon like a lot of other museums have. We do that to raise funds. It's a fundraising thing, and also to get information about the museum out. We've had events at the museum. We've had bar mitzvahs there. We've had poetry readings there. It's not just a business, it's a community resource. We had a seniors brunch with our Author Study Club of Los Angeles. That's one of the oldest continuous Black operating organizations in the city. That was founded by Bessie D. Wright. The museum next door to the library next door to the museum is named after her. So we've had events like that for the city. The city has also contracted us to use the museum as a voting space. So they're going to be using it as a voting location. They're going to install voting machines in the next couple of months. So we're doing things for the community. So all this nightclub stuff, I just don't know where this is coming from. That's not what we do. We are just a regular museum. We're one of the few Black-owned businesses in that area. And the thing is, historically, a lot of Black-owned businesses have faced heightened scrutiny and unfounded complaints that create unnecessary obstacles. And I trust that in this case, the museum will be evaluated based on actual facts of our operations, because our goal is to simply continue to serve the community as positively as possible.
Okay, thank you. David, you have your hand up?
I did, thank you. Just one of the things, because I was at the hearing that was held with the alcohol, what you'd call it, but anyway, the alcohol permit hearing with the city, and that I did just hear new information that the hours of the museum are Monday, Tuesday, Friday, Saturday. So that was new. So because I think at the hearing you said it's open every day between those hours. So I did just go back, because one of the things I did do after that hearing, because I live in the neighborhood and I've hardly ever seen it open. I did just go back and take a look, because after the last hearing in early December, I did just on a random basis, so it's not scientific, just walk by on a random basis over the next few weeks and took pictures of what I saw. Was the museum open? Was it closed? I did just go through my photos from the month of December, and eliminated all the ones that were not on those Monday, Tuesday, Friday, Saturday. Of all those photos, only one showed the museum open, of all the pictures on Monday, Tuesday, Friday, Saturday. All the other ones, the museum both gates are down, they're in the afternoon. So supposedly those are hours that it should have been open. So again, I'm a little suspicious of saying it's open 4 days a week, 11 during those hours, because the experience that I have had, and I've got the photos to show it with the timestamp and all that on the day stamp, is not that it's open on a regular basis.
Okay, well, in December, we went on vacation, and I went out of town on vacation, and I've been traveling. So that was probably a time when we were on vacation. People can go there. You can go there Monday. I mean, you can go there Monday, Tuesday. You can go. It's open. So that's nothing.
Yeah, I walk by on a fairly regular basis, and like I said, I hardly ever see it open. The only of the photos in December that I saw, like I said, it was only one day that it was one of the two gates was actually up, and that was on December 22nd. At 2:24 p.m. But other than that, it's been closed every other time I've looked.
Okay. Well, you must have gone on times where we just weren't open on those days.
Well,
Yeah.
but like you said, it's you just made the statement that it's
Okay.
open 4 days a week during those hours.
Okay.
And my experience is that it's not.
Okay. So why would I have to be dishonest about that?
I don't know. I don't, but I'm just saying
Okay.
you've made a lot of claims about what goes on, the hours, all those kinds of things. That's the only one that I said I have not experienced. And on a random basis, like I said, walk by and have not been able to show that what you said is factual.
Okay. I wouldn't have a reason to be dishonest about that.
I wouldn't think you would either.
Okay. Okay.
All right, I see a number of other hands raised, and there might be some comment here. What we need to focus on, because this is a UNNC meeting, is what's the ask for UNNC to do? Because the comment period individually is, for everybody, including UNNC, is open till April 1st. So
Laura, just for clarification, what was the ask that UNNC previously submitted for the ZA hearing?
this letter I was skimming through, it's
Yeah,
on our.
what ultimately was the ask?
Well, the ask was, since we had, remember, UNNC had voted to support, but what we wanted the ZA to do is to make sure that the conditions that were imposed matched the request, and that, in other words, the use needed to be, the operations need to be what's described, and that would now include open Monday, Tuesday, Fridays, Saturday. I mean, it needs to be an open museum, clearly. And that we had asked that the alcohol only be allowed, at 6 to 11 p.m. No alcohol service before 6 p.m. That was our ask. What the zoning administrator indicated, and I just don't know if this is true, but indicated that there would not be an ability to limit the times alcohol was served without limiting the times the museum itself is open. That doesn't it seems nonsensical that you can't have a condition that says during these times you can do these activities and during these other times you cannot.
Right.
Like
So
a
there were
grocery
two
store.
principal asks. One was consistency between what was presented during the hearing or what was presented before the hearing to the neighborhood council and what was submitted in documentation to the ZA, and limited hours.
Yeah, we passed that. And I will say, I know that a zoning administrator can tell a grocery store that's open 24 hours a day that they can only sell alcohol in certain of the hours. So I'm not sure why they couldn't
I think it's ABC that tells them what hours within that window.
No, but we've had plenty of conditional use permits over the years that limit the grocery stores from starting, don't let them start at 7 or whatever ABC would allow, that they can't start till 9 or can't start till 10. So unless there's new rules, I'm saying it doesn't make sense to me.
Okay. So there were two principal asks then ultimately, and that's what we have to try to address tonight, whether those should be modified.
Correct.
Okay.
And so I'm not sure, going back and forth with Tariq saying, because this is about what you would want UNNC to do. I mean, I'm glad Tariq is here, but because again, at UNNC, at the board, when we originally talked to him, the folks on the board were very excited, as am I, about the idea of having a museum that focuses on local African American history, the hidden histories that, obviously this is personal to me because this is a lot of what I do. So maybe I shouldn't even vote. Maybe I don't think in a broad way that I really have a conflict because I've never met Tariq in person. But that was the focus at UNNC, and it seemed conceptually that as a means to raise money to help support the business, that it seemed like a sensible proposal. I understand it's created problems in the neighborhood, and that's what we need to address. And I think the other piece of information that wasn't clear at the public hearing that at least one neighbor has found is that for the events that have been held, they had 1 day permits. I mean, in other words, it wasn't illegal, but there's who knew, a way to go around not having a conditional use permit legally, which is to get a 1 day permit from the ABC.
I think there's a significant amount of information that the neighborhood council did not have available to it when it made its initial recommendation. And I think that everyone in the community, myself included, I'm sure everyone at this table on the call is very excited about the idea of having any sort of museum, particularly a museum that celebrates Black history, which is such an important part of our communities. I think we can all be united in that. But I think transparency and candor and clarity in application materials and in project description, and also in operations, is extremely important. The permission to sell alcohol in our community explicitly, where we have such an overconcentration of alcohol sales, is a privilege, and it should only be granted to those who have demonstrated the responsibility to handle that privilege. We have a specific plan in South LA that restricts the sale of alcohol, not on site, but the point being that is a very, very sensitive issue in our community, and it needs to be very carefully regulated and carefully thought through. So I think that there might be some benefit in talking about the discrepancies between some of the representations that the applicant's representative have made, some of the representations made by the applicant here tonight, in the hearing, in previous neighborhood council meetings that are available on YouTube to anyone who would like to see them, and what we as neighbors experience on the ground. There is a big discrepancy there, and yeah, I think that's important. I mean, this is a minor point, but in the application materials, which are available in the agenda packet, the applicant, for example, suggests that retail sales are not a part of their project description. And Mr. Nasheed shared with us tonight, and has shared, I think, at the hearing as well, that retail sales are a part of the operation. Again, I think it's a minor point, but we could talk about some of the more profound discrepancies, that there just might be some lack of clarity about what the project description actually is, what's happening on the site, what they plan to do on the site, and what is reflected in the actual application itself. It's not fully united, and it's very hard to evaluate an application and evaluate whether an organization has the capacity to handle 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, live alcohol sales, live entertainment, and no parking in a neighborhood where there are not driveways.
Right. Okay. I mean, I see more hands. So I also want to say we have another applicant present on a different case. So we have to get to that and out of this room by 9 o'clock. And another thing from the council office that that's to do with. So I just want to, again, expectations. So LB is next, Donna's after that.
Okay, so I understand that. I'll try to be brief. I think my ask, you asked before, what would be the ask? My ask would be that we ask the zoning administrator not to approve the application, at least until we have a lot of these significant questions answered, and that particularly the neighbors and the neighborhood council and the people that live right there understand what the answers to those questions are, even if sometimes we might have some disagreements. You know, I think we might end up with a disagreement about how loud the events are. But you asked a question, Laura, about how can the zoning administrator approve a set of hours, but that's not the real set of hours, because the alcohol permitting has a different set of hours. That's a question I would like answered before they approve any conditional use permit. We heard questions about how often the museum is open. Is there documentation on either side of that question that shows, you know, hours that has been open the last 6 months, hours that's been open the last year, how many school groups have gone through, how many tours have, you know, that kind of thing. If there's any documentation of that, that would help us answer that question. I would want to ask the question of why it would be necessary to have, if it's an occasional fundraiser, why wouldn't the occasional one-day permit work? And why would it be necessary to have a permit that allows alcohol sales from 10 in the morning to 2 in the morning, 7 days a week? That's not an occasional fundraiser kind of application. And if we all understand what the implications are over time, because once that kind of permit is granted, it's very, 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 very difficult, as we know, to take that kind of permit back or to restrict it anyway. And so that would be what alcohol sales are allowed for that space pretty much going forward in perpetuity. So that's a question that I have. So I think we have a number of significant questions. We've only met with the owner of the museum at this meeting, the UNCC meeting, which is a great meeting, but it's not always the best meeting for exchanging information and having real conversation. So I think my ask for the UNC would be to write a letter that says, we don't think you should approve this permit while we have these significant outstanding questions, and questions about the application too. That's the other one. The application isn't accurate in some respects. It says that there aren't any sensitive uses nearby. Obviously there are. So I would think that I would want to know if they could update and modify and correct their application before the application. So that's my ask from my perspective.
Yeah. Donna, then Steve.
I just wanted to make sure that people are saying one thing, people are saying another. Open 16 hours a day inside a room that holds 14 people. Are they allowed outside in the backyard where there would be more noise heard in the community? And 16 hours a day selling liquor in a sensitive area next to a library, a park, and a preschool. Those are my questions.
Dave?
Thank you. So I realize that in these meetings, sometimes people are hyperbolic. So Mr. Nasheed, you said that you hold events once every blue moon. Having interest in astronomy, I can say that blue moons happen about once every 2 3/4 years. So I'm assuming you're being hyperbolic.
Right.
So can you give us an idea of how many events at night you've hosted at the museum since the ZA hearing?
I think my own event since that last meeting, probably one. Now, there have been people to rent out the museum for private events.
How many have been in the space?
There's been about 3 since.
3 since mid-December.
Yes, and these were private events.
But you're renting out the space or offering it to people to use. It's not done without your permission.
But no, it's with my permission. It's with my permission.
Okay, thank you.
So Laura has a question, and I think it's for Hakeem. Since before you were the deputy, you were also a city planner, right? Is this even, I mean, it would seem to me that the application ought to have been for an event space rather than a CUB, and then continue to get the one-day ABC permit, or what? I mean, is there a way to solve this problem, but put conditions on that would make it a good neighbor to the neighbors?
Yeah, that's right. Well, thank you for having me. Hakeem Park Davis, Deputy Director of Planning and Land Use Transportation for Council District 10, Councilmember Heather Hutt. I read the application very thoroughly, and based on the code sections that are referenced, the exception here is for the live entertainment, not the alcohol. So theoretically, if Mr. Nasheed wanted to go ahead and pull temporary alcohol licenses, and this is not for full liquor, this is only for beer and wine as disclosed, then he could do that. Theoretically, what I understand about it is that the space does have a potential for an event hall space, right? That language was explicit on the application. It also spoke to the application being for a bar. But the main use is established as a museum. It's not uncommon for museums to have beer and wine to that extent. However, there are some anomalies with the application, like the hours of operation that are inconsistent with the nature of a daytime operating museum. So what Mr. Nasheed is really asking, from what I can tell, is that he has the museum, he's trying to enhance and improve the performance of the space. This isn't like a, from my read of it, and after I interviewed Mr. Nasheed, visited the site, and looked at the surrounding concerns of the neighbors, I can see how those concerns can be a problem. But I also thought about it this way. This application is for a business that is owner operated. It's been in the community and serves as a community resource to an extent, right? There are propensities to have owner operators release the space to a third operator, and that third operator may advertise in a way that may result in something that's undesirable in the neighborhood. But through this application, and once we get clarification and negotiate as a community and as neighbors on how to make it functional, I think we can get to a place where it's going to be continue to be a community asset, and the operations will be improved. As of right now, there are no conditions that guide Mr. Nasheed as to how to operate. There are no rules other than don't that give him the conditions to operate in a way that mitigates the externalities or the effects on neighboring properties. So I think this is a great opportunity for us to really come to terms about this neighbor property owner who has an asset in the community, and he wants to enhance that asset to the community so that it can be more resourced and be able to serve all of you as well as the broader context of South LA and Los Angeles. This opportunity will give the zoning administrator to, take a look at this, and based on what we all talk about, I'm going to go back and reiterate to the ZA how to condition this should it be approved, so that, let's say, that back fence line where you guys are experiencing maybe some noise, perhaps we have to do some sound attenuation there, maybe some shrubs, maybe a sound barrier. Maybe there's conditions on how audiences can be queued outside of the space. Maybe the queue is not in the parking lot. There are little things that we can think about to kind of condition it to bring it back down to earth. The bar references in the application, it relates to the actual serving area that's on the site plan, not changing the use to a bar. There is a sub-use that's designated as event center. I think that might be something you all should talk about and come back to us about, and perform some limits on that. Me and Mr. Nasheed had a conversation about some of the concerns the neighbors have posed, and he seems to be relatively amicable to making some changes to those hours in order to make sure that the neighbors are okay, and that this is a longstanding institution that we're setting up here. So, generally speaking, I think there's a sentiment of support given the realm in which this application is being proposed. I do think there's more work for us to do to get it to the finish line. I see that, Steve, you have a hand. You have a question for me? Oh, okay. Yeah, so, that's generally the sentiment in my read of it. I don't see the scale of the building being an exorbitant draw. This isn't the kind of space that can host hundreds of people at a time, from what I can tell. And if I'm wrong, someone let me know. But there may be gatherings, and there is a brick wall on one side and a building on the other. It's a sound tunnel. So we need to definitely think about that as we relate to the outside space leading to the ingress and egress of the building. There will be no use of a bar established in the traditional sense, because it's not a standalone bar, and it's not subject to a full alcohol license. So we're thinking of this as a accessory alcohol application for the museum and any operations in the museum within the boundaries of their hours, within the conditions that are to be determined by the zoning administrator. And I'm listening to you guys, and I'm listening for agreements here, and not accusations, because that's not helpful to any of us in this situation. I'm listening for agreements. So if we can come to some agreements, I will write them down and I will institute them as best I can through the ZA.
Can I make a comment?
Well, I actually want to ask Hakeem a question.
Go ahead.
Well, number one, can the council office ask the ZA to officially extend the date
Yes.
for deadline? So take it not to April 1. So then number two, I mean, it sounds to me almost like the application has to be rewritten. Can the application has to be rewritten, not just the ZA's opinion?
Well, it would be the determination that is what matters. So what we can do is clarify the scope of work, and we'll have once we have our agreements, we'll send a letter with the necessary parties to the ZA and share what our agreements are. And then we'll have that memorialized in the determination letter. I think of it like this. Right now, they don't have any rules. He doesn't know what rules he's even breaking, right? Because he's a newly established enterprise to an extent. He's a property owner here, and this particular modality of how he's operating is new, right? He's doing it actually. The media that I've seen there, I have seen the crowds, I have seen the gatherings, and the same things you guys have seen. But it's not the extent that I understand to be like a nuisance. We haven't had any statistics from PD that have supported any claims of nuisance activity. We haven't had any reports in the instant of the stuff happening. So I really want to encourage you guys to really think about how do we make it work for the community, because he's genuinely, operating from a place of giving back. Some of you may not know who you're talking to, but Mr. Nashid is a very well respected, and a notable name in a lot of circles, and has a very high regard for his work in storytelling, as well as community philanthropy. So, we're not, looking at somebody who's a lascivious operator or a chain operator of places to throw parties. So we just want to make sure that we're setting the tone and communicating that we need to figure out how to right size this application. And yeah, I do think that clarifying the request is important to, for the verbal sense. But when I go back and look at the code exceptions that are on the application, is actually for the live entertainment. And when we talked about that, the notion would be he would like to put on display art forms like comedy or poetry and other forms of artistic expression that come out in a live format. So we also talked about ambionic music, limiting the amount of DJs. And then now that we know that some of the concern and consternation around noise has been about about outside operators renting the space, we know that we can, provide ample conditions for those situations as well, so that when and if there is a operator that takes on the space, they also will be aware of the conditions. And lastly, because they don't have the operation of the permit now, and they don't have the rules of the road now, there's nothing for a litmus for the city planning department to enforce. So with the determination and valid conditions that envelope the project, then we would have the police power to then reinforce the rules, right? And not saying that that's going to be a scrutinous thing, but it also gives us a way of tracking the issues, so that when a plan approval does come about, we'll have enough information to say, okay, maybe that sound attenuation wall, it didn't work, so maybe we need to buffer that with a little bit of landscape, or maybe we can put some sound barriers or mitigate by replacing windows on a house. Who knows what the outcomes and the solutions are right now, but that's what I'm listening for from you guys, and I definitely need some agreements that I can go back with.
Okay, well, okay. And there are a lot of people trying to jump out of their seat or skin to talk. It's 8:30. That's one reason why I said, can the deadline be extended? I think I also need to have somewhat of an educational talk with the folks who live immediately adjacent, which I can't do in this set. And I heard that you just asked us to give you the list, but I almost feel like I need to look at all the things you just said when we have a transcript and kind of draft a list, share it back with you to make sure I've got it reflected correctly from what you said, but then share it with the community. So we're not going to get this, we're not doing it tonight. We're not going to get this done by April 1st either. That seems clear. And we're going to have a more of a neighborhood meeting, one that's not subject to the Brown Act, one that's not like this, but maybe, you know, UNNC could maybe host it, but not as a public meeting.
Laura, if I could just jump in, didn't the ZA suggest that Mr. Nasheed have a meeting, a community meeting at the museum?
At the museum, he did. She did.
Yeah, so I think that would be a great
except
idea.
for she didn't, I did. Somebody did, but it might have been me, actually.
I feel like the
DA
DA
permit that allows something on that site, because last time we checked, it was not here. I'm just trying to get clarification. I mean, a COO. Sorry, COO.
I don't know if he has a certificate of occupancy or not. But what I'm hearing is we have work to do and we're not going to get it done tonight.
So may I ask one question? Can somebody, there's several people here that lives you know, in the area across the alley. And I feel like Mr. Nasheed has had a chance to talk and other people have had a chance to talk, but I don't feel like anybody who's actually hearing, seeing, feeling has had a chance to answer. So I just ask that at least one person.
Sure. I've got Kristen. I don't know where she lives. I've got you. I know where you live. You live right.
Akio, Tano, go ahead.
I don't care who it is. I just feel like
Tano has had his hand up for a little bit.
Let him go, please.
Okay, that's fine.
Kristen was before me, and she's closer. I would like to share after her.
Okay, go ahead, Kristen.
My question was just if this is not the forum for people to be able to share their concerns and go over these conditions, just what that would be. Will there be another meeting with the ZA or what was my first question?
Kristen, this could have been the forum, but we're running out of time.
Right.
And it's quite clear we're not going to solve the problem tonight. So the most important thing needs to be for the council office to get the time extended. So that
I'll get the time extended. And I also want to, figure out when soonest we can get a meeting together with us here on this call, if you're interested, so that we can go over that, particularly the immediate neighbors that would be most affected. I would love to get that going.
I'm happy to help, and I'm sure Elisa's happy to help. We can pull together such a meeting. It's just that I'm so sorry. I'm running a Brown Act meeting with the whole agenda. We've got to get through everything, and we have to leave by 9. So that's our problem here tonight. And it sounds like we have actual work, roll up our sleeves and work, because we've got community members who basically want this. My understanding is for the ZA to turn down the application. And Hakeem, I understood what you said, because I've been working with the planning department for 40 years. If they don't issue a conditional use permit, there's no conditions to enforce. So the only way to have conditions that are then enforceable is to have a conditional use permit of some sort.
And again, it's only for the live entertainment and not the alcohol particularly.
Right. So we're just not going to finish that tonight. We just aren't. So that's what I'm trying Yeah,
Right, so
Chris,
let's agree that the community members will meet with Hakeem and people of
And-
UNNC
and
to
Tariq.
come up with, and Tariq to come up with some
right.
suitable outcome for this, but that will have
Okay.
to be scheduled in the future.
Right, and again, UNNC can convene a meeting, but it would be more like what we used to have, which was a Jefferson Park Community Committee. We don't have that anymore, but obviously we have the Zoom, we have everything. What we just don't have tonight is the ability, and I would prefer it be an in-person meeting with her, at the museum, if that was at all feasible, but I don't know if that's feasible either.
You okay with that, Tariq?
I'm perfectly fine
But
with
then
Okay, cool. I
but
think we should meet there.
UNNC, but for clarity, UNNC could not technically convene
No,
that meeting.
yes, Laura, we understand that, but I think that's great. Tariq is willing to open up the museum, the community members can come, Hakeem can be there to kind of coordinate and mediate some of the concerns, and that meeting can be scheduled.
Right.
But I would like to respectfully request that that meeting take place off-site, because as far as I am aware, there is still not a certificate of occupancy at that site for assembly use. That's all, that's why I asked about that.
I see.
And so there are events
Okay.
taking place,
So
and there is not a certificate of occupancy.
So would you,
Council office would be a great spot.
it's not in the footprint, it's so far away. The library might be a great spot if Carla would let us.
Library next door.
The library,
Next
yeah,
door.
let's.
I mean, and I think, if you guys are formulating conditions, like if you're claiming it doesn't have a certificate of occupancy, a certificate of occupancy is usually tied to the building as construction and actual physical attributes and use, right? So it would have had to have some kind of certificate of occupancy at some point. It may not be for this particular use, but that's not to say that the building isn't safe. So if we're going to establish a change of use, the conditional use permit also would predicate the building and safety department clearing the use change. So for me particularly, I would love to see the space, because as a architect and city planner, I can't look at a space that I don't see and actually physically look at the conditions of it. So, for the neighbors that are concerned, it seems to be like noise and maybe a little bit of foot traffic potentially. We got to, see how those conditions actually exist as they are and confer that and communicate that to the ZA.
Okay, so,
Mhm.
so again, next steps, here are the next steps. So everyone knows, we'll table this for tomorrow.
Stop for a second, because Kiao's had his hand up for about.
Okay, Keo, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I'm gonna be 30 seconds, but we keep talking about the effects on the neighborhood, and so I think the museum is a great idea. But I wanted to show you guys what it looks like. I am 1 block from Jefferson and Arlington on 31st Street, and so this is what happens whenever anything goes on in Jefferson. This is what my block looks like, and these are just taken. People double park. I don't know, this was taken last month. I couldn't get into my driveway. You can't get out of your driveway. This is common whenever there's activity on Jefferson.
Is
And
this activity that's precipitating from this particular
it's
use?
just anything on Jefferson. And
Okay,
you
I
know,
want to stick to the topic and make sure that we're talking about this particular use.
And Keo, I didn't know you would be able to share, because normally okay, go ahead. Sorry.
So anyway, it's the until 2 a.m. 7 days a week activities. Like, it's really going to affect everybody that lives on our block.
Sure.
All right.
And Mr. Nasheed has already spoken to that and is malleable on the hours of operation. So we hear you. Thank you.
Okay, so again, I know that it's been noisy, there is no doubt. I know there've been events, there is no doubt. We know there's been alcohol, there is no doubt. We're gonna work this out, but we have somebody else who's been waiting patiently. We have another presentation and it's really late. So, so everyone needs to know we're gonna not deal with this tomorrow night. Do not show up expecting that this is gonna stay on the agenda. And Hakeem is gonna defer, and I'm gonna look on the transcript to see what he had, type up what he had said, and then we're gonna work something out. Okay, so
Everyone stay engaged.
right. The next item is also Jefferson Park, just by the way. So we have to move on to the next item. It's Oh, I
You
passed
guys let me
my,
know how it goes. I have to go. My fiance is waiting for me for
Yes.
dinner. Bye-bye.
thank you.
And I'm going, thank you so much, guys. Thank you. I appreciate you.
Thank you. So item 5, we have a previous cases follow-up, and that now is 2800 West Jefferson, a case that we dealt with also about a year ago, and which was put on hold by the city planning department. So I want to make sure he's still here. Gary, are you still here?
Yeah, hello, everyone.
Oh, there you are. Thanks. Do you need to be, apparently, no one needs to be a co-host to be able to share, but, are you planning to share anything tonight?
Yeah, I
screen?
can go ahead and try to be quick, but let's see. Let me just,
Well, tell me if you can share. KO was able to share,
yeah, let me see
and if
here.
not,
Yeah,
I'll
it
make you a
looks like I'm
co-host.
able to. So I think, yeah, I think you're seeing.
Okay, I'm just
screen.
raising my hand in frustration because I really don't want people to be able to share if they weren't.
Is
a
that working?
co-host,
Are you
but,
seeing the second slide now?
Yes.
Okay.
We
All
are
right.
seeing a second slide.
Okay. All right.
Can
Well, I'll
everybody
go.
online see this? Okay.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'll try to give some abbreviated kind of presentation, allow some time for discussing. But so, yeah, so I'm Gary Benjamin of Alchemy Planning and Land Use and representing the applicant for development at 2800 West Jefferson Boulevard. Where this site is located is a site that's currently occupied by a auto body repair shop on the corner, as well as there is one single family dwelling as well on one of the parcels. I think you're familiar with the location, but but generally speaking, yeah, here it's located on the south side of Jefferson Boulevard, and here are the parcels in particular. So this is the 3 lots that are occupied by the auto repair, and then there is one single family dwelling located here on this lot. Just a few additional images of the site for context. Again, just these parcels here is what's involved. And then looking west on Jefferson, looking south on 8th Avenue with the site here on the right, looking east. And so here's what we're proposing for the site. So it's a 6-story structure with 2,000 square feet of commercial space on the ground floor, as well as 70 dwelling units on the upper 5 levels, which would include 10 studio units, 21 bedroom units, 35 2-bedroom units, and 5 3-bedroom units. Here's some additional images. The project, the materials that you're seeing here, this would actually be a wood tile material that we're proposing on the exterior, as well as large glass windows and glass balcony railings, as well as different colored stucco sections. And then there would be green screen fencing along Jefferson Boulevard for some of the sections that have parking at the ground level. And then additionally, as I mentioned, the retail commercial space at the corner. The lobby would be off of 8th Avenue, as you can see here. This is just a different rendering with a nighttime view. And in terms of the layout of the building, here's the ground floor. We'd be proposing new street trees along Jefferson Boulevard and 8th Avenue, the 2,000 square foot space. I think we don't know for sure what the end use would be. So we're identifying as a restaurant here, could be a retail space. It's just a commercial space generally, and then parking at the ground level. And then going up from there, we have a central courtyard, an additional setback along the back where there would be space for patios and landscaping, also on the western property line, and then units that would be circling the courtyard going up. So then the other floor plans just repeat from there. In terms of what we are requesting with this, the base density for the site is 56 dwelling units. We're proposing a total of 70, so that represents a 25% increase. And of those 70, we're proposing 9 very low income units. The site is within a half mile of a major transit stop, so the city hasn't required any parking for the project, although we are providing parking at the ground level, as I showed. The transit in the area, it's served by the Metro Rapid 210, Metro Local 38, and LADOT Dash. And then the Expo line is just slightly more than a half mile away from the site. The other application requests, the actual incentives that we're requesting, we have an on-menu incentive for kind of a standard 20% reduction in recreational open space, as well as some reductions of CPIO requirements, including a CPIO requirement to allow only 37% of the frontage along Jefferson to be what they call public interior spaces in lieu of 75%. Also relief from a loading requirement and relief from a reduction of the rear yard, which in this case, the rear yard is the western property line. We're also requesting additional FAR, height, and a reduction of the allowable, the required transitional height plane as well. So I can get into that. I'm trying to be cognizant of time, but I can go into any of those in greater detail if you would like. So kind of having discussed that, I just, returning to the image again. This is the rear property line would be over here. So we do have a setback from that western property line, which is the rear property line, commercial space. This would be green screen parking, and then 5 levels of residential above. So like I said, I can go into things with more detail, but given the short time, I'll turn it over to you if you have any questions or things you want to state.
Gary, can you remember from a year ago, there were like 3 things, but I don't remember, and I cannot find the transcript, that we found somewhat objectionable, and I think it had to do with not the technical rear, but the actual rear facing the residences on the south. And meaning, how far is the setback? And I think there's an alley and it became 15 feet, is that right?
Yeah, I mean, so if you have let's see, I'm trying to see the.
And David, I do see that your hand is up. And then I will also say that I had asked if there was a way to have additional, commercial parking, not more parking spaces, but maybe a slightly different mix, because the commercial will suffer and die if it doesn't have any parking. But also, was there any place that you could not you, but the applicant could have obvious ride share, drop off, pick up, that kind of thing. So that's what I remember. Other people might remember other things. And so I'll let David ask his comment. You're muted, however, David. David.
I know, I was trying to get back to the screen to unmute myself. Sorry about that. I was trying to find in your document, how many parking spaces did you say you were providing?
We have 45 parking spaces.
Okay. Because I couldn't find it in the document, and I thought it was going to be no parking. So I am actually encouraged that you're providing some, but using the definition of a major transit that you said you're going to use, according to the state statute as well as city statutes, in order to be considered a major transit station, it needs to be crossing of 2 major transit lines, and to be considered a major transit line, it has to provide 20-minute intervals during peak morning and afternoon commute. The 38 does not count because it's 30 minutes or more. So it does not constitute a major transit line. So that would mean Crenshaw would be the only transit line that would meet that qualification, and there's nothing that crosses it within a half a mile. So you can't use that statute to say you don't require parking, because you do.
Yeah, do you want me to speak to that, or
if you could?
Well, isn't that what was the holdup, and they made a determination, if I'm not mistaken, Gary?
So the original, so let's see. Yeah, so what the holdup actually has been for the past year, I'll just state, was we switched over to doing what's called the housing element checklist, which is like a CEQA streamlining. And we actually submitted that all the way back in March of last year to the city. But I think it's a relatively new environmental program, and it took a long time. It also involves what they call tribal consultation, which took several months in the middle there. So that's actually what the delay was. It wasn't related to anything with the request, but was just the environmental. I was trying to look up to see my prior notes.
Well, I
needed.
seem to remember something that one of the lots, but not all of the lots were within 500 feet of something.
Yeah, I was,
Like a piece of it was okay and the rest of it was just outside of 500 feet. But was the 500 feet the expo line or the 500 feet the intersection of Jefferson and Crenshaw?
well, I mean, yeah, so I'm trying to look over. I have an email exchange. Because I know one of the things that was initially I know that one of the things that qualifies for one of the like sort of major transit stop definitions, but I don't want to say the wrong thing. So maybe I'll keep looking. If folks want to have other comments, I'll take a look, but I don't want to misstate. I know I have because my email exchange that I have is actually from May of 2024 related to this AB 2097 confirmation. So it's been a while since I had that conversation. So that's why I'm trying to kind of refresh my memory about how planning made that determination. But I know that
But they did make the determination. That's really the bottom line question. You can have the answer tomorrow night. Oops. Hopefully you're still.
Yeah, I was just gonna, I mean, so like I said, so here's this message from Kyle Winston. We've reviewed this internally and agree that the project does qualify for AB 2097, but I don't remember why he determined that or why he didn't. But that's, so I'd have to kind of backtrack and figure out why.
So essentially they're saying you don't have to provide any parking, but you're gonna provide 44 spaces or
45, right?
And okay. And I still think that the mix needs to be mixed a little better towards some commercial or joint use, guest and commercial. I don't know, whatever you want to call it, but it just feels that you're gonna have an unsuccessful retail space, which wouldn't be a good thing. Are there other questions?
Is there some estimate of the square footage of the studio units?
Yeah, the size of the studio units, let's see. To me let me just see if I have that information handy. Yeah, I think it is on the floor plans. Yeah, I'll okay, so
just for tomorrow.
Yeah, so just if you're seeing my screen as an example, so like this one bedroom on the corner, 746 square feet, two bedroom, 865. And then let's see, where's a studio? Studio 474. So that gives you an idea of the range of the unit sizes. So
you know, it's interesting with the year delay where we've had units that are 250 square feet. I mean, in other words, this looks so much better than maybe it looked a year ago compared to some of the projects we have looked at since. But anyway, but Steve may not agree. What do you think, Steve?
I just have a question. I remember this being presented before, but I didn't have time to look for my notes from the meeting. So I may miss this in your introduction. How many of the units are for very low income and for extremely low income?
So we have 9 for very low income, and that's all the affordable units are very low income.
Right.
So you have 9 total very low income units out of how many again?
70 total.
So the rest are all market rate.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
Okay. But of course, Steve, market rate might just be low income. I'm being sarcastic.
You mean if the economy collapses?
No, I mean, because low income is now $85,000 a year of income for an individual, which hardly seems low. I mean, it seems like that's market rate anyway.
That's affordable.
Okay, I'm making a snarky remark and I'm wasting our time.
Stay on topic.
Yes, wasting our time. It's 8:53. So we're taking this forward to tomorrow night to the board. I hope, Gary, we can give you a little more time, but please have these questions that were asked answered for tomorrow night. Do we have any comments, motions? Is it just going to go forward to the board? Because we had been at the board already and then it got on hold. What do you think? Do we need a motion?
I thought, is it on the agenda for action?
Tomorrow night it is.
Oh, for tomorrow night.
Well,
but not
well, it can be tonight because it's under. I mean, it's a previous case, but we don't have to take action. This came up after the agenda was published.
So the problem is we don't know what this committee previously requested.
We sort of do. I can't find the transcript because it turns out we switched to Zoom. So I have to find the transcript if I can, or look at the YouTube if I
Right,
have
but
time.
we don't know tonight in order to make a recommendation.
Correct.
What we
Oh,
previously
you're right. You're
requested.
absolutely right. We had,
by tomorrow, but we don't know by
yes,
tomorrow.
we made a recommendation before that. You are correct. I just don't know what it was, but I'll have to find it. I
It doesn't
looked for the
appear- So for example, if there were concerns about the design of the building, my recollection is the design hasn't changed.
That is correct, but what has changed is further state law. I mean, there's certain things we kind of can't have concerns about, is unfortunate. Okay, I mean, but I will look to see what we had, Steve. It's just I won't have a transcript. I'm gonna have to rely on whatever we had that I might find. And I might have to sadly find a YouTube on our YouTube channel. But we don't have, we switched Zoom.
We understand, so we're
Yeah.
on it.
Okay, so the only other thing I wanted to bring up, but we won't have a recommendation on this either. But Council District 10 is going to be doing two motions that either Friday or early next week on the same topic. The topic is the Mary Clay School, which is now the World Preschool. It's on 3911 West Adams Boulevard. It's already a HPOZ contributor, so the architecture from the outside is fine. But the Mary Clay Kindergarten was operated from 1959 to 1970 something. It was one of the first, if not the first, preschool kindergarten for African American children, because there were more and more working women, but they couldn't, if they were African American, they didn't have a place to put their kids. So the request from somebody, not one of us, was to do a dedication of the block as the Mary Clay School Square. But Donna Jones and I asked that they also nominate from the floor the same facility as a historic cultural monument, because we have all the research, as it turns out, just, it's created. So that they have asked that UNNC write a letter of support. I don't think we have 3 minutes. So I don't, it's not on the agenda. I don't think we have time to discuss it at any length, but if there's any objections, I want to hear it now so I can tell the board there were objections. But otherwise, I think we've had a theme going on tonight a little bit.
Just a point of clarification, Laura.
Yes, sir.
It's actually called the World City Center.
The what, who?
World City Center.
World City Center is the current operator. So the essentially this house was built as a home, but by 1936 it had already been converted to a boarding school of some sort, and then it was the Leona School, and it was a woman named Leona Free, and she didn't want to use her last name because she didn't want to call it the Free School because it wasn't going to be free, and yes. And then it was Mary Clay, and then it was operated by a woman named Sue Clay, who was Mary Clay's daughter-in-law. And this seems to have all evolved because Sue Clay is in her 90s, and they wanted to do something to remember, to honor while she's still alive. Right. So, and it's still a school. It's been a school all these years. So that's that answer, but I don't think we need a motion. Okay, anything else? Your old business, ENS. Okay, oh my gosh, we have 2 minutes, so I need to say goodbye.
Goodbye.
Yeah, thank you all